Hey, what's up? It's the Figure Hunter. Up for review tonight is an in-depth comparison of the Coros Vertix 2, which was recently released, against the Garmin Fenix 6X Solar Titanium. So I picked the solar variant because it has the longest battery life compared to the Coros Vertix 2, which has the longest battery life in the history of watches ever made. And the titanium makes it lighter. So I have already done a spec comparison looking at the overall size differences, brightness differences, all of those types of things. It'll be in the summary of the description below, just a link to the spec comparison showing the percentages of differences. So what this whole video is an in-depth comparison of the feature differences, the functional use differences, what it's like day-to-day type of differences, especially when it comes to workout training and training load over time. Obviously, everything on this channel is for the purpose of testing devices for CrossFit training. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing for more. I've got the Amazfit GTS 3, which was just announced today, on its way. I've got the Polar Grit X Pro on its way, and the Whoop 4.0 will be here at some point, sometime, who knows when. But we're going to look at these side by side. We're going to look at just the basic comparisons when it comes to the watch itself and just some of the overall functions. We're going to get a little bit detailed here so you can see what like a day in the life might feel like. That's the whole point of this, is not just some of the top level differences, but looking at like functionally, how does it feel, how does it work, and using it for working out, but also using it in day-to-day life. So we're going to look at the watches sort of side by side and the apps side by side just for general overviews. Then we're going to talk about a workout dedicated section when you look at like what you get on the watch, what you get on the app for workouts, and then for training load over time. And then last, we're going to look at the wellness differences. So the sleep quality, the wellness features, and what other benefits compare side by side to that. And then we'll talk about it in just full summary. So with that, let's dive in. The first thing we're going to look at is just the watches and the functional use day-to-day, what I like and didn't like about each of the different watches side by side. And we'll look at the app at the same time. Okay, so here they are side by side in all of their glory. Obviously, the link in the description below will show you the differences in the overall specs, but having used these for a couple of weeks now side by side, I really love the look of the Coros Vertix 2. I love the accents. I love that they have, sort of markers around the side. I love that it has a little bit, obviously this is a purposeful rotating crown that has function to it, but I also think it just gives it a more robust. So when you look at them side by side, the basic casing on both are 51 millimeters, but this seems like a much more robust watch, and it feels like much more robust watch in day-to-day. So I like the look, but I very much prefer the feel in wearing it day-to-day of the Garmin Fenix 6X. The Coros just did start to feel a little bit heavy, a little bit too bulky. And obviously, like I mentioned in another video, the band quality is different because the Coros has changed their bands for the Vertix 2 to be a little bit more rugged and a little bit more lightweight, but the feel of it is not as smooth and not as soft and not as flexible. So that's the differences when looking at these sort of side by side that I just would note after that long of a period of time. So with Garmin, you actually have widgets. So the widgets just sort of scroll through. And the other thing with Garmin, and this is something that I say all the time on the Coros videos, is that the Coros backlight is just really dim. Again, it's like 12 to 15% of the backlight of the Garmin. So we're just gonna turn this up for the rest of the video. So on one thing that's nice, Garmin, you can edit, you can customize all your data fields. So Coros, you can push a button and it'll change one of the data fields. You can see the changing at the top. But on Garmin, you can edit all of these to multiple different data fields, and you can download watch faces from the watch store. Although Coros does have a large supply of watch faces, they don't all look great on this quality of screen, but they're all really well done. So you have widgets, and I'm just going to look at the basic widgets differences. So you have all these different types of widgets that are similar, but the best thing about the Garmin is that you can take away these widgets or add these widgets. So you can do a whole bunch of different things as far as customizing your widget views. So one of the things that is not on the Coros is a weather widget where you can see upcoming weather details. So you don't get that on the Coros, which is funny because it's on like every other watch it seems like it's coming out. Sunrise sunset is on the Coros. Doesn't look quite as good. Compass, you have your basic training activities, and we're going to look at those in the activities section. You have your notifications, which is also on the Coros. It is a little bit, this is what a notification looks like when it comes up on the Garmin. So you have a white backdrop and a large bold text font, and it's just not quite the same. when you go to look at it on the Coros. So we'll look at that just side by side now, since it's sort of important. You can read this a lot better, and it's not going to show it on the video as well, but this is actually a lot harder to read because the text size is thin. So that it's thin and the backlight is more dim. So you read this and it's got thick, bold text size, and you can't change the text size on the Coros. This is way more useful, way more legible on a regular basis. So that's what the differences are in the text readability. One thing I'm going to point out, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, is that they both hold music. They both they have internal storage, and you can play music directly from the watch. But the Coros only will hold like MP3 files. And I think it's been 10 years since I've kept up with MP3 files. So Garmin it'll work with Amazon Music, it'll work with Deezer, it'll work with Spotify, where you can download playlists that you don't actually have to own. You build the playlist on Spotify, and it'll save all those songs into the watch, and you don't have to travel with anything tethered. So that's a big difference on the music as far as functionally what benefit you get. I don't see any usefulness to the music area unless you're going back into the 1990s and using Napster to download music in the MP3 format. So we're not doing that. That's not how it is. So you have some of these other things. See, here's like, some of these things you can get through the Garmin. You can get Surfline. It just tells you like what the surf's like today. You can download all these widgets and get all sorts of different features. Hydration, you can add that. Sleep, there is a sleep widget on the Coros, but you just see basic things. You can see, it's not popping up here automatically, but that's a text message, or it's a notification. So that's how the widgets work on the watch itself. And you look at the widgets that are built into the Coros, you have a fixed set of widgets, and you can't remove some of these things. And some of them I just think, I don't want to see that. That's not any information I would ever want to see. There are some super useful widgets that they have added through the EvoLab, which are really fantastic. But some of them just aren't. So you can see your calories burned for the day, your total workout time, how many steps and floors. This just sort of shows you, these are the training widgets we'll look at in the training portion of this video. And then you have your heart rate over time. I don't really care to see my heart rate graph from the day. Sleep, I didn't wear it to sleep last night, so you don't see that. But I'll show you that in the sleep section. I'll make sure it's populated when I do that section of the video. And then you just have altitude. And I just think, I don't need to see altitude. I'm not going a whole bunch of places. And then the sunrise, that's, the basic, calendar app or calendar aspect of what the sunset, sunrise, dusk, those types of things, which is super useful. And your barometric pressure, like you need to know that in a moment's notice. Maybe that's good for when you see a storm coming in because the barometric pressure changes, but I don't track that sort of stuff. And then temperature, again, not useful. So a lot of these widgets, they're cool. They look really nice. You can track it across time. So this rotating crown functionally serves as a way to track information across time. So really neat sort of engineering and design, but not super useful if it's not functional. I will say between the two, one minor thing is that the Coros has haptic feedback or vibration that has a bunch of different levels. It's really nice. It's really high quality, because when you go through the first widgets, you just get a slight little, like a little blip of a vibration. And then when you get to like a major thing, like going back to the home screen, you get a major vibration. You get major vibrations throughout the day, but it has really nice haptic feedback. They're using a high quality vibration, whatever it is. Garmin just has vibrate or not vibrate. So a little bit simple there, but that's the summary of just how they functionally work. So when you get into, so Garmin has 1 million different settings, and you just sort of scroll through it and you can change a bunch of information. Obviously download your Spotify playlist, and you have a quick settings. You can hold that, and you can add and take away all of these. So you can only put the things up there that you're really going to use, like the backlight or the flashlight. Gosh, this thing is super useful in the dark. It works. It's just a simple tool. Coros, in their settings, they basically have one page where you just go into, and they're not going to have a flashlight because it's really dim. So this is where you get all of the main features. So there's the compass feature that's actually in a widget form on the Garmin. You have all the same alarms on both watches. You can set multiple alarms on both watches. You have a lot of different settings that are actually available on the Coros itself. So, a lot of the settings are similar or is just as capable. It's just, laid out a little bit differently. The mapping we'll look at a little bit later, or maybe this is a good time to sort of see how the mapping looks. So I'll do a side-by-side comparison of how the mapping looks on each, because we're just sort of talking about a summary of the features and benefits of the watch right now. And then we'll look at the app.
Okay, you can see differences in the mapping. This is the Garmin. This is the map that's actually just built into the workout profile. So within it, you can obviously, it changes the directions. And then if you hold it in, you can pan and zoom and you can look in more specifically at the area. You can see, literal names of streets, things like that. You can obviously pan and zoom, you can scroll up and scroll down all through button controls. But this is, again, just a screen on the workout profile itself. So this is the mapping feature on the Coros. And as you can probably tell on the video, it is because of the dim screen, it to me is not super legible. And then on top of it, you don't get street names of any kind, and the colors are just sort of washed out because of the screen quality itself. So you can see, one of the things everybody says it's great about it, it's obviously trying to find GPS because I moved inside from picking it up outside. You can see, you can easily control it. Really great experience with using the both the touch screen as well as the scroll in and scroll out, but it's not an automatic screen built into the run or the hike or the walk. Maybe it can be added. I'm not going to take the time to figure out if there's some way to add this as an all-the-time screen in each of those things. I would have to assume it's possible, but just not as great quality of visual display and no street names. So that's just a simple...
All right, so this is the basic landing page. I'm going to try to go quickly through some of these things because everything else is not going quickly. So you get all the summary of information, your workout from the day, which we'll look at in the workout portion of this video, all the basics. So the steps, if I click on any one of these, it's going to turn the whole screen to the side and make it look really big, but we're not going to do that, but you can see a summary of information on the main landing page. Then you have your workout log, next tab over, and just basically as simple as it sounds, workout log. And then you have the EvoLabs. This is where it analyzes the load that you're under, the volume of intensity of the workout. So not just how much time do you work out, but what the intensity was relative to your ability to handle intense workouts over a long period of time, which we're going to talk about in the workout section. None of this is activated till you've run 300 minutes over the course of 42 days. So you won't see any of this stuff, but you will be able to access some of the bottom settings without having activated the EvoLabs. Then you go one tab over and you got the watch. And here you can customize the workout data for any of the fields, any of the screens. You can change and edit how the layout looks with any of these things. You can access watch faces, and it's got a laundry list of watch faces. I do find that some of these watch faces look big and beautiful on this page, but then they don't look as great on the quality of the screen itself when you get it over there. And then you can set your notifications. You can adjust basic things in the watch here. So that's the overview. And as it compares to the Garmin, here on the Garmin you have all these primary fields of information in a similar way, but they do have better visuals with each piece of information. So you're getting a little bit better. It's like all the visuals aren't the same size. So you have information, it's just clearer, easier to read. And the other thing you can do is you see week at a glance, yesterday, week at a glance, but you can edit all these things and you can take in and move things around, so you can customize this to your liking. And then if you go on the bottom of Garmin's page, you have performance data, which you can dive into any of these performance data, and then you have health data. You can dive into any of these health areas. You have activities, which is like you hit the all activities in the middle and you'll see all of your activities across time. And then you have a bunch of other features that you can sort of access. For the Garmin, you basically go up into the watch, you click on the watch, and that's where you set up a lot of the features and details that are going to be specific to the watch, specific to the settings within the watch. But that's the basic summary for how the apps are different. Let's talk about... Okay, so what do I like about the day-to-day watch, like just the basic life living experience with each of these watches? I definitely like the Vertix 2 for the bezel and for the overall look and quality of the design and feel. It's not that the Garmin is lacking in quality and design and feel, but the Coros just has so many more sort of accent colors, accent around the bezel, just accent features, and just overall, it's just it's a little bit more hardy of a watch. So I felt this on my wrist a little bit more. But overall, I just sort of like the overall look of this better. But the Garmin, obviously, in the day-to-day and functional use, it just performs more excellently. The backlight issue is a major issue for me. So the fact that Garmin has brightness that can go up basically like 8 times the brightness of the Coros watch. So, in comparing these side by side, I just set this at 20% of its max brightness, and it's about the same brightness as the Coros, and it's got better quality on the colors and the blacks and the resolution. Everything stands out better, therefore is more readable. I like the text messages on the Garmin Fenix 6X because the font is laid out in a way that's more clear, and the quality of the backlight and the quality of the colorization makes reading messages as you get them throughout the day much more functional. I think that the widgets that just come out of the box on the Garmin Fenix 6X are more useful, and you can change the widgets, you can edit the widgets, you can add in custom third-party widgets. So it's just far more expansive than the Coros. I think the Coros has stepped it up with better quality widgets. They used to just offer just a simple set of widgets that had, to me, relatively zero day-to-day usefulness, because you would have a heart rate graph, you'd have a barometric, the pressure in the air and the altimeter for where you're at above sea level, which day-to-day is just not useful, and especially not, in my opinion, for those people doing CrossFit, because we're not out running hills necessarily. So I just feel like they've expanded it. They've given you more widgets. They obviously have more training widgets we're going to talk about in the workout and training section. But the fact that Garmin, you can relay the widgets, you can take some out, you can put some in, the fact you have that type of control, plus you can add more useful widgets on a regular basis. I mean, just the weather widget itself is just, functionally super useful, and there's no weather widget on the Coros, and the fact you can't take widgets out, can't add them back in. But overall, I think the quality and the design of the Coros it does feel superior. Obviously, the content and the details and the pricing, this is going to be more expensive, like $850 for the titanium solar, and then the battery life on the Coros is going to crush that of the Garmin. But both of them are going 3 weeks roughly on battery, and this is going 6 weeks. So it's going to take the cake there. But overall, that's the hands-on looking at the app. I think the app experience in the Coros is a little bit more simplified. You can't dig into data. You're forced into the screens. If you want to see the data on a chart, you have to see it, and it automatically plops it on its side. So you don't have as much easy control of just readability and simplicity. So that's that for the watch and for the app. Let's look at how they function in a workout, on the watch, in a workout, or after the workout, and the way that they show the data in the app, and then the way they pull the data into the training load and the training features of each of the watches. That's the most important part. Let's dive in. One thing to say before diving into the workouts is that the accuracy just straight out of the box when wearing this watch on the wrist is much worse than the Garmin, but on either of them, I think I was getting in like 80% accuracy just off the optical heart rate sensor that came with the Fenix 6 version and all the variants that came with it. And I was getting about 40% accuracy when doing a CrossFit workout and wearing the watches on the wrist. So in neither case do I recommend wearing them on the wrist. All of the workouts that we're going to analyze and all the data that flows through, other than the workouts that I did to test the heart rate accuracy when worn on the wrist for doing CrossFit, but all of the data is just off of a chest strap. So both of these connect to Bluetooth chest straps. The Garmin connects to Ant Plus, but you have to wear both of them with a chest strap to have any accuracy or any relative accuracy, although the Garmin's a little bit more accurate, and that's just a disclaimer now. So let's dive into the workout. Okay, now we're into the real stuff in the workout. So you go to do a workout, what are you going to see? Now on the Vertix 2, you really don't get a lot of functional flexibility in how you design this. You can't copy and replicate an activity. You have to use the ones that are preset. You have to use the order that they're in, which I find super annoying because some of the things I use are on the opposite side of each other. Whereas on Garmin, you can change anything, you can add anything, you can customize anything. So like I made my own little CrossFit by just changing the name. I copied the cardio, set up the data fields how I want. You can set up the data fields in both. You just do it on the app here versus literally in the watch on the Garmin. But if we're looking at just what a workout would look like, you can just sort of wait and start. We'll start that. So you can change the number of data fields. So this is like, my basic summary of data that I like to see. So you get the same basic layout. You can change some of the layout a little bit more flexible in the Garmin, but the same number of like 8 data fields that are available. So you can do your lap times. This is where you hit the bottom right button on both and you can set your new lap. So, I wasn't started on that one. So you can set your lap, so it'll show you, like if you were tracking your time per round and wanted to know what round you're on, if you're doing some sort of Metcon that has 10 rounds, you can track it. Okay, I got done with round 1. You know where you're at. If you start to get fatigued, you can track it. You can also see what your last lap time to compare it to the current lap time. So you can do all those features here, and you gotta unlock it. It has a natural lock button. You can turn the lock off, the auto lock off. So we're just gonna finish it and discard this. We don't want to save that. So that's what it looks like on the watch itself when you're in a workout, and how functionally they both are really great on a workout. The data fields you can see, the way that you can use it for CrossFit type workouts. And then we want to go into what it looks like on a workout after you're done. So what information do you get? So there's the workout. No, that's just today at 4:30. So here's the workout here. And we're going to go to that same workout on the Garmin watch and see it. Okay, so this is the workout on both watches, the same workout, and the information you receive. We just have to go all the way to the top here. On the Garmin, the information is a little bit more clearly laid out as soon as you get done, but you don't go back to that same visual representation. So you basically have to go into the workout. You can see all stats, you can see the training effect. Here you just get a summary of the training effect in the beginning, training load, aerobic training effect, and anaerobic training effect. And here you get it in different pages. So you see the same thing, 3.3, 0.9, load 119. So it's giving you a different load score. It's got a little bit different tracking system, but you can see all the load there. You can see your heart rate graph on the Garmin. And you can dive into the all stats field, which will show all this same stuff. I do like that Coros just has all the pretty colors and all the charts all in one summary page, whereas Garmin, you have to dive into different subsets of data. Like when you go into the workout afterwards, you have to pick which one you want to see. And then you see at the bottom the recovery time. The recovery time on the Garmin is automatically built in. It shows you at the end of the workout how much recovery time is needed from that workout to the next rigorous workout, and then it tracks that countdown timer in the training status icon we're going to see in a second. So here it just shows it here. So let's look at that. Let's look at the actual training to see how they each track training on the watch. So that was that. So we'll go into the EvoLab here. The first is just running based, but we're not going to look at that. So this is the basic training. So similar to here, you see that you're fatigued, or your fatigue level. So the further up the red it goes, the more fatigued you are. Your base fitness. Now we'll look at this in the app in a second, because I feel like this is a useful number. This is tracking your overall load you've been carrying recently versus the load you've been carrying over a longer period of time. And so it's useful. You can see your training load chart, which you also have the similar training load chart here. The numbers are somewhat different, but again, I find that both of them have great visual display for your training load over time. This is a 4-week intensity distribution. I don't think that's very useful. And with Garmin, you just get a lot more specificity. So you'll see your VO2 max built in there. So again, here's the training status where it gives you a specific recommendation. So this will say you're not really training as much as you should because you're on the lower end. You should train harder, but it doesn't give you a verbal recommendation for where you're at in your fitness. If you're really pushing yourself as hard. Here it says recovery because I'm under training, my load is down, so it gives me actionable items. And then you see specifics about the training, whether you're aerobic, lowly aerobic, highly aerobic, type of training, what type of workouts you've been doing. So it gives you specifics. And then there's the recovery time. So the recovery time is in a different page here, where you go into a recovery dedicated page, and you can see the recovery is 61%, 24 hours till hard training, and you can click into it, and it says 24 hours until the next hard workout. Oh, come on. And then 34 to like a full recovery, whereas this just sort of says 18 hours. One thing that Garmin does differently than every other watch, and definitely different than Coros, is that they take recovery time, and it's called improved recovery time, which takes into account your heart rate variability all day and your sleep to determine if your recovery is up to snuff. So if you get a bad night of sleep, it's going to add 5 hours of recovery. It's going to say you shouldn't work out if other components of your life are not in line with a really, approaching a really hard workout. Coros will actually just give you, we're going to look at the heart rate variability tracking on Coros a little bit later in the wellness section, but primarily they give you the workout to workout recovery time, whereas Garmin takes into account multiple factors on top of the workout to workout recovery time. So with that, let's look at the app and go from there. Okay, so how do we see workouts and the value of workouts in the Coros app itself? So the most basic is you see the summary of the workout in the top there. You click on that and it gives you the summary of the workout. So in the top bar here, underneath the workout time, you have your training load. That's an important metric for how hard, how much intensity, how hard you pushed your body. Then you have your heart rate zones and how much time you spent in each zone. Then you have the training effect, which is basically advice saying whether you pushed yourself on the aerobic threshold or the anaerobic threshold harder or not as hard as you should. And you can see the specifics about how each of these, it's got both training focus as well as training effect for the workout, what they mean, like how are you pushing yourself harder or not. So you can really get a clear understanding of the way that the workout impacted your body. But this is the summary of workout data on the Coros, and if you look at the same summary of workout data on the Garmin, you can see similar things. They have multiple pages, so if you had lap times, if you were tracking rounds per time, you could actually see that built in there, which you also would see on the Coros. Down at the bottom, you'd have your laps if you were breaking it up and wanting to see how well you paced yourself on Murph. So you get all the same basic information, but there's the training effect, aerobic and anaerobic, and you hit the help button. You can still get more information if you want to look into it, and then your heart rate zone. So a lot of similar information. You do get one thing that's different on the Garmin versus the Coros. You get respiration rate, so you can see, in the Metcon at the end, how hard you were breathing. It's an idea, just a general estimate there. So that's how it differs in what you see on the workouts for each of them. And then let's look at the load over time. So this is the EvoLab. So again, if I push on any of these bars, it's going to take me to a sideways chart. So just look at the summary. The top part is for runners only. I'm not going to look at any of that stuff because it talks about your pace and other things that we're not tracking here on this channel. So the middle bar, which says performance, like fatigue, base fitness, and load impact, those are your numbers where the fatigue, you push yourself extra hard over the last few workouts, your fatigue level will go up, your base fitness will slowly rise over time, and the load impact from the last workouts is reflected there. And then below that is your overall range of what you should be doing in your range for training load, like how much intensity volume you've put on your body versus how much your body should be able to handle. And you want to get in that green bar in the middle so that you're pushing your fitness to a higher level. One thing that Coros does well is that base fitness number in the middle, so you can see not just a recommendation for whether you're under training. I can look at the chart and say, okay, I'm under training. And part of that is because I wasn't wearing a chest strap. I was going off the optical heart rate sensor, and it just wasn't picking up the intensity of the workouts. But if you go into any of these, it puts you on your side, which I don't like that it forces this chart, but the chart is still useful all the same. So you can sort of turn off some of these features, some of the parts of the graph, and you can see your base fitness. So obviously my base fitness was at a peak of 69, and now I'm at 59. So, I got some work to do. In here was when I was testing the optical heart rate sensor on the watch, and it was just not giving me good credit. And then you can go into the 7-day load, and you can just see where you're peaking out, where you did a bunch of workouts that were really hard, putting your body under load, and it evened out. Some of this is not totally applicable because it was building my base fitness. So it thought I was doing a really hard workout when really I'd been working out for a long time, and so it wasn't that hard on my body, but because it was building my base fitness in that period of time, it thought I was pushing myself beyond my capability. But the summary of information and that base fitness number is a really useful number for tracking if you're really pushing yourself on the regular, besides just the training load graph. And when we look at that in the Garmin, we go into the training status. Again, to get the training status to activate with verbiage there, recovery, balanced, you can always access the training status going into the performance tab at the bottom. You can see training status at the top. So it will not have a verbal recommendation, but it'll always have the load. It'll always be in there. So here you can see it. You can see a summary of information, and we'll just hit the load in the very middle of the page. And this takes you into the aspects of load tracking that Garmin provides. And they provide, in my mind, a little bit too much detail. So here you can see the range of, the majority of your workouts are anaerobic, highly aerobic, or lowly aerobic, and the range that's recommended for your fitness level. And I'm balanced because I'm sort of in the dotted lines for all of them. You can see your load over time. This is where you can see each workout and what type of workout it was, if it was categorized as anaerobic, highly aerobic, lowly aerobic, and then your load scores for each of the workouts built into each of the workouts themselves. If you hit any of these workouts, it'll take you to that same workout summary page, and then you have your 7-day load. This is the same sort of chart that Coros has, where you can see your green bars is what you want to stay in to be maintaining fitness, and you want to push towards the upper edge to be able to grow your fitness higher. Or, like if you were about to do a big workout or big CrossFit competition, you'd want to taper off so that the white line is sort of at the bottom of the green zone, meaning you're maintaining your fitness, but your body has not been under heavy strain going into a big workout competition. And that's how each of these evaluate workouts and workout analytics on the watch and in the app, and then your training load analytics over time. What do I think of both of these? And this is a primary piece for how it displays workout data, how you can functionally use the watch in a workout, and then what the watch shows you in a summary form of the workout itself after you're done, and then how do those components flow through to the training load and tracking the rigor of that workout, and how it's helping evolve your fitness level and what information we get there. So it used to be Coros just gave you very limited, and the training load tracking was just not functional. It would just show you that you worked out today, you didn't work out today, you worked out today, so it was just like a hill that was just based on whether you worked out or not. So now the EvoLab really does bring a lot of that into it, and it really is functionally useful. There is a major caveat with the EvoLab, though, is that you have to run 300 minutes over the course of 42 days at a minimum of 10 minutes at a time on flat surface, and you can't do intervals in order for any of that stuff to activate. So please hear me on this. You cannot get all of that great data and review and analysis without doing all of the running first. And then the weird thing is that when you get done with all the running, it's like, okay, I'm going to turn it all on, but I'm not really going to take into account what you've done up to this point. So your base fitness is like starting at 0. So every time you do a CrossFit workout after that, it's going to say, okay, you need like 5 days to recover, which is absolutely not true. It's just it doesn't know your base fitness. It hasn't gotten it up to a higher long-term average. So they've got to work on some of the EvoLab setup features and some of the EvoLab start features so that you have some sort of idea of your fitness level going into it. So it doesn't take, obviously it takes all the running sessions to turn it on, and then it takes about 3 or 4 weeks to get it up to normal so that it's giving you proper recovery time. So all of that aside, and that's not something you can easily put aside. That's not something to brush off. This is a major thing, and I'm going to note it in the timestamp that you have to listen to this part, because that's a big part of all the functional metrics when it comes to training over time and the analytics of the training over time. And even some of the watch widgets don't turn on until you get the training analytics to start up. So that to now noted, how do I feel about the two differences? I feel like the EvoLab is functionally super useful. I feel like the ways that it's tracking the ranges of where my training load should be over the course of the last 7 days versus what I can handle, showing my workouts or showing my overall load range over the last 28 to 72 days or however long it goes. So I feel like they have really mastered and put out a great solution that was not there before. Once you get it up and running, meaning once you do all the running and then you get your base fitness to where it is actually normalizing, I feel like the recovery time is very useful information and actually really accurate. And the base fitness, how it's showing your base fitness growing, is actually very useful information compared to the Garmin. Now the Garmin has load over time, which shows just as good of a graph. I don't think it's as clear because Garmin has so much specificity to what type of workout you're doing, whether it's highly aerobic, lowly aerobic, or anaerobic type of workout, if you're in the right ranges. So you have so much more information to kind of sift through, which to me is not as valuable. I'd rather just have that green bar chart which shows the training load over time. But one thing that Garmin doesn't do is show your base fitness level, which is just an evaluation of your recent workouts compared to your longer term workouts. Are you growing your fitness? And that's one thing that Coros does really well, and a couple of the Polar in particular shows it really well to show if you're being truly productive. Now Garmin has it in a similar model because they do give you a training status. Garmin does have a requirement that you have to run at least 2 5-minute sessions using a GPS run activity to get a VO2 max stamp. And then once they know your VO2 max, they can tell you if you're pushing your fitness higher or lower. So you will get training status recommendations, meaning that you're undertraining, overtraining, maintaining, or what they call peaking, which means that you're in great shape, but you've sort of tapered off in preparation for, some big hard workout or some big hard, long period competition, whatever you want to say. Coros actually has that base fitness, which actually shows that your fitness is getting higher and stronger, which I think is a more useful determinant for how are you growing. But the training status notice actually is useful at the same time, and Coros doesn't have simple verbiage for whether you're improving or declining. So the workout, the data fields they're great on both watches. You can track your time per round. You can track what round you're on, what your last round time was if you're trying to keep up with a certain level of pace. So they're excellent for CrossFit workouts by just editing the data fields that are available on both of the watches. So all of those things in a workout is functionally useful, and all the summary of information, the training load, the aerobic and anaerobic, and the recovery time stats that you get on both watches are functionally great. There is a slight difference in the training load, the training effect evaluation. So Garmin is going to say if you raise your heart rate but keep it raised for a prolonged period of time, then you are building better aerobic capacity. Coros is going to say if you raise your heart rate and that heart rate stays really high for a long period of time, then you're building your anaerobic capacity more. So when you do the same workout with both, even if the Metcon was like today, it was like 17 minutes or 16 something of just higher heart rate, the Coros said, this workout had a high anaerobic impact. The Garmin said this workout had a high aerobic impact. Now, I've done a whole video, actually I'll put it in the description below, on what I think the differences are from my studies of anaerobic and aerobic exercise and the impact on your body physiologically. I do believe that when you're holding, your heart rate super high, even if it seems like it's in the anaerobic threshold or in the anaerobic region, if you're holding it for 20 minutes, you are pushing your aerobic capacity, and you might have to be leaning on the fuel sources that are required for anaerobic exercise, but you're obviously dependent on the primary fuel sources that are required for aerobic exercise over that long of a time period, that long of a domain. So I think Garmin has it right in how they weight the aerobic versus anaerobic effect. And I know this is super specific, but if you're watching this video and you're doing CrossFit, these are important things to know about the watches because they're very different. The Coros is going to say you're really pushing your anaerobic, which I don't think is necessarily true for a 20-minute Metcon. So those are the primary differences, but the information they give is both useful in both ways, and the training effect is useful in both ways if you can just get past the incredible length of time to do all the running, to turn all the activity, all the analysis on, and then the length of time to build your base fitness so that all of the metrics become useful. So that was that, and it was purposefully a little bit longer because I think it's required for what we're really trying to look at between these watches is how they evaluate fitness and fitness development. So last, let's look at wellness and overall sort of the health side of both of these watches and what they offer. So sleep, wellness, what different components of wellness are offered in both watches, and we'll look at it on the watch, we'll look at it on the app, and then we'll come back together for a summary. Okay, so how do these differ in wellness aspects? It actually is somewhat significant. So we'll just start with the Vertix 2. So we got to unlock it. And then you basically have a sleep summary. And you go into the watch and you can see your average over time. And then you scroll down, you can see your amount of deep sleep, amount of light, awake, and the total amount of sleep. So you can see chart your time over the course of that time. So that's the simple summary when it comes to sleep. Whereas on the Garmin, when you go into the sleep, you get poor quality. So basically it's giving you a rating. It'll tell you every night your sleep score as well as your total time in all the stages. So you can see the deep, light, and REM and awake. But just, it obviously gives you even like a little overview of how you should manage things going forward because of the quality of sleep. So the most important thing is this poor, and then on the app we'll see it as well. We'll basically see what the score is comprised of. So not only does it give you REM sleep in addition to the light, deep, and awake, but it also tells you a score which gives you direction, actionable direction. The second thing on the watch itself is the heart rate variability. So really nice feature that they added is the heart rate variability test. It basically, what they're recommending is you take a test when you first wake up within the first 5 minutes, and you track your heart rate variability, and over time it gets more used to what your heart rate variability first when waking should be, and it can help you to see another layer of how restored you are, how recovered you are from workout to workout. So all it does though is it just gives you a spot check, so you can't see this information anywhere in the watch. So you can just see the test is here in the watch, and then we'll look at the app in a second to see the wellness there, but it doesn't actually give you real meaty information. But on the Garmin, you get a lot, and Garmin is currently the leader in this. So you get what's called a body battery, and the body battery is your heart rate variability at all times without you having to tell the watch to do it. So it basically is tracking your stress. It relates the amount of heart rate variability with how much stress you're on throughout the day, and it comprises and compiles it in an overall regenerative fashion, like how much you've regenerated through your night's sleep and how much you've depleted your body battery by stress due to heart rate variability over the course of the day. So you can see it. I don't even think I have the widget in here. You can see just a stress widget, so you can see like what your stress level is, and it'll tell you like a snapshot here on the Coros. But this is probably one of the most not noticed but most important features that Garmin provides is this body battery, because you'll see sickness coming on. You'll see not just how well you recovered in your sleep, but if you had a severely stressful day and you were significantly depleted and sleep only caught you up to 50%, it'll take that into account versus a single morning snapshot, which just shows a single point in time versus the buildup of the day before. So that is a major feature that Garmin offers that really nobody else offers. And the Coros, the last thing I'll say is they do pulse ox. So the pulse ox is just a simple button press, and then you can take the measurement now, and you can see that's just where your elevation is over time, but you can see your blood oxygen level. So this is another sort of wellness feature, but Coros only uses it for tracking your blood oxygen in a spot check format. So typically if you're in high altitude training or high altitude climbing, you want to check to make sure that your breathing and your oxygen level in your breathing is adequate or at a risk level. But Garmin, on the other hand, tracks it again however you want it. You don't have to push a button and tell the Garmin to do anything. So the main way that people use it is by just tracking it over the course of a night's sleep. You can set the widget in here, and clearly I have not put the widget in here, so my apologies on that, but you can either set it to track your pulse, your blood oxygen level all the time or during your sleep, and the sleep is the most important. The sleep adds value to wellness because you can see if you are taking in enough oxygen, if there's any hiccups or pockets that you might have sleep apnea. So that's the summary of on the watch health and wellness features. Let's go to the app. All right, so here we see the Coros page, and you basically get the sleep and summaries at the bottom. And one thing that's hard, so you can see a summary of the total time, but this is really hard for me in the sense that it's just a big blur. So one hand, the thing that's hard about their sleep analysis is it's not very clear, like the information is not super great. Across 9 nights, I did get 2 failed nights where it did something like this, where you just don't get anything clear and the timing doesn't match up. The amount of time has been right, but if you look in the top right corner, you can see the deep sleep 3 hours, light sleep 323. Obviously, there's no REM sleep, but the deep sleep is continually coming back like considerably higher. And I'm testing this not just against Garmin, but against Polar and the Apple Watch and some of the sleep apps. So you can see, again, it's not a great score it's not a great visual display. Plus, it has had some inconsistency with accuracy or flowing through. And then the deep sleep, they're obviously not giving you REM sleep, is considerably high almost all the time versus what do you get on the Garmin. Now we're going to look at this in a couple different ways, but here you get obviously deep, light, REM. You can see special things. They can see how much movement you had, and then we'll touch on this, and we'll just look at it now. This is the pulse ox. So this is where you can see how your sleep was in a night's sleep. So again, tying to another component of Coros that just does a spot check. Here in the Garmin, you can actually see how much blood oxygen you had throughout a night's sleep to see if there was sort of obvious problems and issues. Plus, they give you respiration rate. Again, not another piece. So when it comes to sleep tracking, you get in-depth information, and they tie in the blood oxygen tracking in through the night of sleep. That obviously affects battery life. Coros has got the best battery life of mankind, but Garmin's tracking heart rate variability all day, pulse ox while you sleep, and we'll talk about the battery rate itself, and then respiration. So a lot more information just on the sleep tab, but that's not the best part of it. The best part of it to me is this summary of the factors. So the amount of sleep duration, stress level, so it's taking into account in your sleep what your heart rate variability average was over the course of the night's sleep to see if you were
really recovering or only slowly recovering. So in this last night's sleep, I didn't recover as quickly. And so you can see all these informational pieces that flow through to a poor score. So if you take, again, you take the sleep here, I'm not going to turn it to its side because it's just the sleep here, you just get, okay, total time of sleep, maybe a total amount of time in deep sleep. And you compare it to what you're getting on the Garmin, you're getting a sleep score, you're seeing what areas you had poor quality in so that you can, and then you have a link to the National Sleep Foundation. On top of ultra detailed specifics, on top of pulse ox, blood oxygen tracking, on top of respiration tracking throughout a night's sleep, all summarized together. And then we have heart rate variability. Again, another really thing that Garmin does excellently. Okay, so this is the body battery tab. You can see your heart rate variability over time, and you can even overlay your stress. And you can see when you're in the blue, which is your regenerative zone, or when you're in the high. Now, it's all counterintuitive to what actually heart rate variability is. The high number means that you had low heart rate variability because your heart is just weak or depleted. And you can see this over the course of days. So you can see how a week at a glance is affecting you based on your heart rate variability at all times, morning, noon, and night. So you can see in the pockets of time, I had the watch off for that period of time, but you can see when you had great restoration and great recovery, and you can see when it was really poor and the days run you down. And Garmin ties this body battery information and ties this the sleep score information into your recovery time. So if you had a terrible night's sleep and your super high stress day, the Garmin watch will change the amount of recovery time that you need. Versus, here's how the heart rate variability is tracked on the Coros. You see it down there at the bottom, heart rate variability index. There's my morning snapshot. You turn it to its side. Again, what is that? You got a little dot. Now, obviously, it can tell you if you're really recovered versus not, and you can track it over 7 days. They say do at least 3 days because the tracking gets more acquainted with you, so it becomes more valuable and useful. So you can see it tracked over 3 days. The last 3 days were particularly in the morning, and you can see if you're in superior range. But what do we know? We know, and it's saying I'm superior. So if I was looking at this in these last 2 days, I would say, dang, I am really fully recovered. Now, it will take longer for it to better know my heart rate variability over a longer period of time, but at first glance, at least, we know, okay, I'm in the superior range. I am doing great. And then we come out of that, and if we go into Garmin's system and we go sleep score bad, so sleep score is obviously actionable information, and we go, wait a second, my recovery was not good, and then my day wore me down a little bit too much yesterday, so we know I'm not fully ready, whereas on the Coros system it's showing us fully ready. So that's the wellness aspects.
All right, so what do we see? We obviously see that both of them show the sleep specifics on the watch itself, which is great. Not every watch did that, and Garmin didn't do that for a long time. So you can see sleep specifics on the watch itself. But what do we see about sleep, heart rate variability, and blood oxygen tracking with both of the differences in these watches? Obviously, sleep head-to-head, the Coros is just giving to start out with, it's just visually not very helpful. It doesn't actually show me in a clear picture representation worthwhile information, number one. Number two, it missed 2 out of 9 days. Number three, the deep sleep is always way more than any of the 3 other devices that I've tracked it and compared it a long way with. And then obviously it doesn't include REM sleep. So it doesn't give you a score, it doesn't give you actionable information, it just gives you a blob of information, and that information is not very well laid out, versus the Garmin, which obviously tracks REM, it tracks deep, light, awake as well, but it also will show you your movements. You can see how much you moved. When you go to move, it actually shows you a score. You can see your pulse ox over the course of the night's sleep, so you can see how your breathing, your oxygen level was while you were sleeping, and your respiration rate. And then on top of that, they give you a sleep score, so actionable information based on like 8 or 9 or 10 categories of how good each piece, subset of sleep, of wellness, of rest, which includes heart rate variability because they track your stress. throughout a night's sleep to tell you how really recovered and ready you are for the day. Let's talk about heart rate variability. It is awesome that Coros has built it into that you can actually take a spot check for heart rate variability. You can wake up, you can sit still, you can follow the directions, you can take a heart rate variability, and over time, it will understand what your heart rate variability has a tendency to be like, and it can sort of pick up on fine-tuned differences to tell you actionable, well, it won't tell you any actionable information, but it'll show you if you are falling down and therefore not as recovered at first wake up. Now, a lot of studies show that your heart rate variability at first wake up is a valuable piece of information. Whoop puts more heavy algorithm pressure on the last few bits of heart rate variability. And a lot of different tracking metrics say that that's worthwhile, but the benefit of Garmin taking heart rate variability all the time, again, think battery life translation. They're giving you heart rate variability 24/7 without having to push a button, without having to do anything else. And the value of that is, in my opinion, limitless. Not just the sleep-based heart rate variability or the recovery in sleep, but the stress level of the day before and the day before that and the day before that. Are you catching up? So all the time versus spot check, and the spot check doesn't actually give you actionable information, even though it does show you a trend line. And then last, the blood oxygen tracking. This is really just for climbers, for high altitude hikers, for high altitude, that are looking for pulse ox or blood oxygen in the moment, but Garmin will let you track it throughout a night's sleep, which can give you indications of something being problematic with your breathing throughout a night's sleep. I don't think that this is as accurate. The new sensor that's now on the Garmin 945 LTE and the Venue 2, and that will later be on the Fenix 7, which will probably be released in the first part of 2022, it tracks pulse ox a lot more accurately. So I think that's going to be more worthwhile. So I don't think you're going to really get a whole lot out, but just the fact that they conceptually use it over the course of the night, you can obviously get a spot check anytime you want, but those are worthwhile pieces of wellness, and those are the significant differences. Coros has got to raise their game in the wellness aspects, like they've grown their game in the training and workout analysis and details and training load over time. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about in summary. Okay, so what do we see in summary? Obviously, what's the same and similar about these? The robust design, the build quality, the basic functions, alarms, multiple alarms, notifications. It is great they both have mapping of some kind, and Coros is really now on the cutting edge, or at least leading the way in other watches. The compass, the sunrise and sunset, the workout functions, the fact that they display multiple pieces of information. You can adjust it, you can customize it, you can control the watch. You can do, like for CrossFit tracking, you can track your time per round and the number of rounds you've completed on a longer workout. The training load, the recovery time within the training load, the fact that they track how much load you're on coupled with how much load you should be under in order to really grow your fitness. And then they track the recovery time workout to workout. Long battery life, they both have long battery life, and we're going to talk about the differences in a second. Pulse ox, the fact that they can both do pulse ox, they can do heart rate variability tracking, those are some of the similarities. But let's talk about first what Coros does better, and then what Coros does worse, and where the real meat and potatoes lies. So what do they do better? I think their build quality is better. In my opinion, I think the look of it is better. I do really love the innovative side to the company. Just today, as I'm finishing this review, there was an announcement that they now do multi-pitch climbs, like ice climbing, and you can scale it in. They have a really awesome looking carabiner. I would have no need for the carabiner, but it is super cool looking, super high quality. So it goes back to the build quality, but they're innovative in how they're doing things and how they're wanting to grow things. I do love that their base fitness, they track not just the load and the amount of load that you should be under and your load range and the amount of load and the fatigue level, but they track your base fitness to see if you're growing your base fitness over time. I think that's really useful. Polar does it as well, but I think Coros is doing a great job with it. Battery life. Obviously, there's significant battery life on both of these, but I did track it day to day with the Garmin backlight turned down. We'll talk about that in a second, to match some of the backlight similarities. And it's basically 2 to 1. For every 2% of battery life the Garmin lost, the Coros would lose 1%. Now I'm going to say 20 days of battery life on the Fenix 6X Solar and 40 days of battery life in real world terms as far as the Coros. So 2 to 1, twice as long and simple. And then the cost, $700 for the, $850 for the top of the line with titanium and with solar to get the longest battery life and lightest overall design. You can get other variants of this for about the same $700 cost. That's not as big of a thing. What is worse? I think there's three fundamental worst things for me. No, there's 6. Oh my, no. I'd say there's three. To get the training load components, you have to run 300 minutes to get the EvoLab to even activate. That is a lot of running, and from then you're even starting at a base fitness of 0, and you have to build your fitness to get accurate recovery time estimates and training load recommendations. Fatigue, all those things don't start until you finish 300 minutes. Secondly, the wellness, missing aspects of wellness and sleep tracking. It doesn't compare, and not only does it not, it's just not good on the Coros, just standalone. Garmin is definitely the industry leader when it comes to sleep tracking, sleep score, and heart rate variability all day. Now, Polar does really great with sleep scores and some of those components, but Garmin just does what I think is better. And then obviously the last thing to me is brightness of the screen. 12% of the max brightness of the Garmin. That means the Garmin is 8 times brighter. The Coros is actually about like a third of the brightness as like, the Polar or Suunto, but the bottom line between these two that are so matched and equal head to head is the quality of the screen is just, the colors aren't as good, the brightness is just so much dimmer. Obviously that saves on battery life, but at the same time, you don't have control. You don't have control to change some of those things. So color quality of the screen is not as good. Widget customization, what are some of the minor things? Widget customization. You can move widgets around and you can place them. You can use third-party widgets. You can change whatever you want to make the widgets your own, and always the missing widgets, versus Coros has got a fixed list. Music usage, only MP3s. I mean, it's great they both have storage built into them, but this one you download Spotify playlists and nobody listens to MP3s, or probably nobody uses MP3s anymore. Maybe you download a book, whatever. And then mapping. The mapping, it's great that they added it, but the mapping is feature rich and functionally useful in the Garmin. You can literally say, what's around me? Whether it's a Starbucks or a trail ahead, and you just say, like, point me there. And then you can get on your bike and you can follow the map. It'll direct you to that point and you're off to the races. You can see details and, all those things. Coros does a good job with how you can zoom in and out, but the mapping's so much better here. So all in all, the most challenging things is the ramp up 300 minutes to the EvoLab, the brightness and the quality of the screen makes just day-to-day life challenging, and then the wellness aspects are super lacking in my opinion. But I really do love the Coros Vertix 2. All that aside, I don't think there's a competition between these two. I don't think there's a competition. I think Garmin really, is considerably better in some of the more all-around solutions, coupled with even some of the same solutions they do considerably better right now. But this is still an awesome watch. My opinion about Coros changed when they updated all the training load features, added base fitness, added training load tracking. All of that aspects really has changed my feelings about Coros as a watch for CrossFit training. But if you're comparing these head to head, there's really not much of a comparison. So that's that. That's the Coros Vertix 2 versus the Garmin Fenix 6X Solar Titanium. It's a Fit Gear Hunter. Thanks so much for watching.